North Korea is supposed to be one of the poorest countries on Earth. The United Nations says people there earn less than $700 a year. That is not $700 a month. That is $700 for the whole year. To put that in perspective, that is about 60 times less than what the average person earns in South Korea, right next door. So here is the strange part. Right now, in North Korea's capital city, there are traffic jams. Real ones. New restaurants are packed. People are paying with their phones using QR codes, just like you might at a coffee shop. There are new apartment buildings going up all over the place. And at night, satellites in space can see more lights glowing from the city than ever before. How does a country that is supposedly starving also have traffic jams from too many cars? How does a leader who once spent $800,000 importing French cognac keep getting richer year after year while locked out of most of the world's banking system? North Korea is hit with more sanctions than almost any other country on the planet. It cannot trade freely. Its banks are cut off. And yet somehow, money keeps flowing in. The answer involves secret hackers, a surprising new friendship, and a bridge that connects two countries most people never think about. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you will understand exactly where this hidden money is coming from, and it is a lot stranger than you think. A boom nobody expected. Let's start in Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea. If you talk to someone who visited 5 years ago and someone who visited last year, they would describe two completely different cities. People who have recently been inside North Korea, tour guides, tourists, and even diplomats, all describe the same thing. Smartphones are everywhere now. People are using them to pay for meals and goods, tapping and scanning instead of handing over cash. That might sound normal to you, but for North Korea, this is a huge shift. This is a country that has spent decades trying to control every single thing its citizens do and see. Smartphones with payment apps were simply not a normal part of daily life before. New housing is going up across the city. Entire blocks of fresh apartment buildings have appeared, changing the skyline. There are new restaurants and bars that did not exist a few years ago. Even cyber cafes, the kind of place where you pay to use a computer and play games, have become a booming business inside the capital. Then there is the traffic. Pyongyang now has real traffic jams, something that used to be almost unheard of. More cars means more people who have enough money to own or use one. And at night, when satellites take pictures from space, they show more lights than before. More electricity, more buildings staying lit, more signs of normal city life humming along after dark. None of this looks like the North Korea most of us picture in our heads. We tend to think of gray buildings, empty streets, and constant blackouts. But reporters who have spoken with people who were actually there, inside Pyongyang, in the last year or two, say the change is real. It is not just a rumor or a piece of propaganda. Something has genuinely shifted. And remember that bridge we mentioned? North Korea already had a railway bridge connecting it to Russia. But now, for the first time ever, a road bridge is being built between the two countries. Satellite images suggest the Russian side of the bridge might not even be finished yet, but the construction itself tells you something important. North Korea is investing in a brand new connection to the outside world, something it has avoided for decades. So if the pictures are real and the changes are real, where in the world is all this money actually coming from? That is exactly what we are about to dig into. But before we go further, if you are the kind of person who likes pulling back the curtain on secretive countries and figuring out how their hidden economies actually work, hit that subscribe button. We break down stories like this all the time, the kind of stuff you will not find explained clearly anywhere else, and you will want to be here for the next one. But wait, look closer. Before you picture North Korea as some hidden paradise, let's slow down for a second, because what we just described is only true in one place, the capital city, Pyongyang. Remember that number from earlier? Less than $700 a year per person. That is the average across the whole country. And here is something even more shocking. United Nations reports estimate that nearly half of North Korea's entire population does not get enough food to eat. Half. While people in the capital are sitting in traffic jams in their cars, people in the countryside are struggling just to have enough to eat that day. This gap is not an accident. It is by design. Visitors to North Korea do not get to wander around on their own. They are taken on guided tours, shown specific streets, specific restaurants, specific buildings. It is a carefully managed picture built to impress. Kim Jong Un wants the world and his own people to see a shiny, modern capital city. The rest of the country tells a very different story, one that is much harder for outsiders to see or verify at all. And here is something even darker. A lot of that shiny new housing, those new restaurants, those fresh apartment blocks, they did not build themselves. Human rights groups and reporters believe much of this construction boom relies on forced labor. People made to work without real pay or real freedom, building the very city that gets shown off to the world as proof of progress. So is this all fake then? Just a trick, a stage set, nothing real behind it? Not exactly. Reporters who have spoken with actual eyewitnesses say the changes in Pyongyang are genuinely happening. This is not just a movie set with nothing behind the walls. Real people really are driving real cars and eating at real restaurants. It is just that this experience belongs to a small slice of the population, the elite, and the fortunate few who live in or near the capital. This leaves us with a strange puzzle. If regular North Korean citizens are not the ones getting richer, and nearly half the country cannot get enough food, then who exactly is paying for all these new buildings, new cars, and new restaurants? Somebody is footing a very large bill. And to find out who, we need to follow the money outside of North Korea entirely, starting with a very unlikely new best friend. Best friends with Russia. Ever since the war in Ukraine started, North Korea has found itself an incredibly useful new friend, Russia. Here is how it works. Russia needed weapons and soldiers to keep fighting its war. North Korea happened to have both sitting around, plus a government willing to sell them for the right price. So North Korea started sending troops, ammunition, and weapons to help Russia's war effort. This is not a small side deal. According to a South Korean think tank connected to the country's intelligence agency, North Korea may have earned somewhere between $7 billion and $14 billion from this arrangement. Just take a second and think about how big that number actually is compared to North Korea's total economy, which is only estimated at around $35 billion a year. That means the money coming in from Russia alone could make up something close to a third of the entire country's economy. One single relationship with one single country responsible for a massive chunk of everything North Korea earns in a year. Think about that the way you might think about your own life. Imagine a third of all the money you will ever make in your life coming from just one single side job. That is roughly the scale we are talking about here, except this side job involves sending soldiers to fight in someone else's war. This is also why that new road bridge matters so much. A rail bridge already linked North Korea and Russia, moving goods back and forth slowly. But a road bridge is a much bigger deal. Trucks can drive straight across. Goods, supplies, and materials can move faster and in bigger amounts. It is basically North Korea building a faster highway for trade with its new best friend, right at the exact moment that friendship is paying off the most. And this friendship comes with another huge bonus for North Korea. Russia has veto power at the United Nations. That means Russia can block any new sanctions that other countries try to put on North Korea. China also has veto power and has been doing the same thing. So while the rest of the world might want to punish North Korea further for its weapons programs, Russia and China simply refuse to allow it. It is like having two incredibly powerful friends standing at the door, blocking anyone else from coming in to cause trouble. But here is where it gets even more interesting. Russia and weapons deals are not the only secret source of North Korea's cash. There is another operation happening, one that does not involve a single soldier, a single bullet, or a single bridge. It involves computers, and it might be the most surprising part of this entire story. The hidden hackers North Korea has built something most people would never expect from one of the most isolated countries on Earth. A skilled, secretive army of computer hackers. These are not random criminals working out of a basement. North Korea trains its most talented young people from a very early age specifically for this job. Kids get sent to special schools designed to build up their skills. They move through special middle schools, then special high schools, learning highly technical computer skills along the way. Eventually, some of the most talented ones get sent abroad, often stationed in countries like Russia or China, ready to work. Their target? Cryptocurrency. Digital money that lives online, the kind you may have heard about with names like Bitcoin. Since 2017, it is estimated that North Korea has stolen somewhere between $5 billion and $7 billion worth of cryptocurrency. Just sit with that number for a second. Billions of dollars, stolen through computer screens, by a country that most people assume barely has electricity. But here is the tricky part. Stealing the money is actually just the beginning. You cannot simply steal digital coins and immediately hand them over to buy a new missile. The stolen money first needs to be laundered, which is a fancy way of saying it needs to be cleaned up and turned into normal, usable cash. This laundering process can take months, sometimes even years. North Korean agents work with bankers, brokers, and underground banks willing to cooperate, slowly turning stolen crypto into clean, spendable money. Only after all of that does the cash finally make its way back to the regime, where reports suggest a lot of it ends up funding North Korea's weapons and nuclear programs. Naturally, North Korea denies all of this. When international organizations have accused the country of stealing cryptocurrency, North Korea's response was that these accusations are simply a political tool used by the West to slander the country. They call it an absurd slander of the regime. No confirmation, no denial of specifics, just a flat rejection. So why hacking of all things? Because it is one of the few paths left that gets around the sanctions blocking North Korea from the normal banking world. Remember how Russia and China keep blocking new sanctions at the United Nations? That same protection gives North Korean workers, including hackers, a little more room to operate inside those countries without much pushback. It is not exactly easy money. These hackers spend years training for this exact purpose. But it is one of the most effective tools North Korea has found for pulling in massive amounts of cash while staying just outside the reach of the world's financial rules. Between the money from Russia and the money from hacking, you can start to see how North Korea keeps its capital city looking shinier every year. But knowing where the money comes in is only half the story. The real question is what happens to it once it actually arrives inside the country. Where the money really goes. So billions of dollars are flowing into North Korea from weapons deals and hacked cryptocurrency. Where does all of that cash actually end up? A big part of the answer comes down to something you could call gift politics. The Kim family has a long history of using money to buy loyalty from the people closest to power. Kim Jong Un's father, Kim Jong Il, was famously one of the biggest buyers of French Hennessy cognac in the entire world, spending upward of $800,000 during his time in charge. That expensive cognac was not just for himself. Much of it was handed out to top military officers and high-ranking officials within the party, a kind of liquid thank you gift for staying loyal to the regime. This pattern continues today in smaller ways too. On national holidays, or on the leader's birthday, ordinary citizens in Pyongyang often receive small gifts said to come directly from the leader himself. Flowers, eggs, food, candy, small things, but they carry a big message. They remind people exactly who is in charge and who they should be thanking for whatever good things happen in their lives. At the end of the day, this is really about one thing: keeping the people at the top happy, loyal, and firmly in place. That is why the growth we see is concentrated so heavily in the capital. Elites, officials, and the people closest to Kim Jong Un need to feel like things are improving. Everyday citizens, further from the center of power, especially those out in the countryside, mostly do not. This brings us to a bigger question that a lot of experts have been debating. For years, one popular strategy toward North Korea has been something people call strategic patience. Basically, the idea that if the world just leaves North Korea alone and keeps the sanctions in place, its economy will eventually crumble under its own weight, forcing the regime to change or collapse. But if North Korea is finding new billion-dollar lifelines through Russia and through hacking, does that strategy even make sense anymore? If sanctions cannot stop the money from flowing in because two of the most powerful countries on Earth keep blocking new restrictions, then waiting around for a collapse might not work the way people originally hoped. That is a massive shift in how the rest of the world may need to think about dealing with North Korea going forward, especially while the country keeps improving its missiles and its nuclear program at the same time. North Korea has managed to build a version of its own economy that runs partly on secrecy, partly on new friendships, and partly on rules other countries follow, but it simply refuses to. Whether that setup can survive long-term, nobody truly knows. But for now, at least in one glowing, traffic-filled capital city, the money keeps coming in. Before you go, if this story blew your mind a little, hit that like button and make sure you are subscribed with notifications turned on so you never miss one of these deep dives. We are always digging into the hidden stories behind the countries and systems most people never really understand. Now here is a question for you. Do you think North Korea's economic boom is actually built to last? Or is it standing on a foundation that could collapse the moment Russia stops needing its help? Drop your answer in the comments. We would love to hear what you think. And if you enjoyed this one, check out our other videos on North Korea's secret hacker army and the stories from people who managed to escape the country. You will not want to miss those either.